earlier this week, the African National Congress holding a media briefing to basically provide clarity on some of its policies. It's also committed itself to ensuring that there is improvement in the supply of electricity in the country to further avoid load shedding. Well, the party expected to hold that policy conference sometime in July. Well, the Minister of Human Settlements, who also doubles up as the ANC's head of economic transformation, Mmamoloko Kubayi, joining us in studio right now. Minister, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Colin. Good morning to you and to
Very
your
good morning.
viewers.
Very good morning. I want to start with your capacity as the ANC's head of economic transformation. And at the time that you were announced into this position, you had some strong words for what is happening in Eskom, persistent load shedding. And I just want to go directly, quote you in what you said at that time. You said, Eskom does not give us a whole picture. What they say does not add up. We want the full story on what is happening with maintenance, since maintenance appears to be a major issue for why we are plunged constantly into load shedding. Do you have any more information sitting here today about what the state of Eskom is?
We've held several engagements, as I said, when I started as the head of economic transformation committee, subcommittee, with the minister, as I committed that we'll have conversation with Comrade Pravin, just to understand, because our view as the subcommittee is not that of, pointing the finger or even not understanding and assisting, because our responsibility is on policy, but we are responsible for ensuring that what ANC has committed, it does implement in government.
Yeah.
So we've held several discussions. I do have a better picture now of where the issues are. And I think we just came from retreat, and the minister responsible will be able to share whatever that government is dealing with. I do not want to get into those details.
But at least give us some tidbits.
No. What I can say is that we have now gotten to appreciate the nature of the problem, where mistakes have been made. And I think previously, if you look at that conversation, what had happened around that conversation, people sort of misunderstood that we don't want to take responsibility as ANC. People misunderstood that we are shifting the blame, and that's not it.
Yeah.
My stance and our stance as the ANC is to say, we know things have gone wrong. We've acknowledged that. That's why even we have the Zondo Commission report.
Yeah.
But what is important in the eyes of South Africans, what is important in the eyes of investors, people who are running businesses, people who want to know, how do I move on? They want to know, until when will this happen? What is the plan? Is there a plan? How are we going to get this out?
Yeah.
And obviously, as you know, I would have been a minister of energy at some point, understanding how that complexity environment is. You know that you can't wake up today and say, I want electricity, and it happens. So that's what we need to understand, where the maintenance. So, and Minister Gordhan has, even after I did that interview, went out public to explain. He was in Parliament, gave a detailed explanation on the needs, the gaps, and also, because we now know that there is a gap of about 6,000, if I'm not mistaken, 6,000 megawatts, that he explained. He explained the challenges, including issues of sabotage, including issues of security at plants, but also he even talked about the issues of skills. I don't know if you remember the interview he did. He even spoke about the issues of skills. So one of the things that is important for us at the subcommittee level is never to overshadow the ministers and take the responsibility of government. So I don't want to do that.
Well,
here, my responsibility as the ETC chair is to say to government and our employees, we have a duty to ensure that we live up to the commitments we've made to South Africans, and let's do that.
The one major issue, though, Minister Kubayi, it is that maintenance, and we have been told it's an ongoing story, that long-term maintenance has been neglected. Is that, sitting here today, still a valid excuse?
We've known over time, as we say, if you look at the report released by even the issues, at the time where we stopped load shedding, one of the things that we're picking up is that, I think it's during Machela Koko, if I'm not mistaken, acting at that time, and Brian, maintenance was also halted. But if you look at all the ministers, for example, even during my time, we did indicate that there are things we needed to do in order to avoid here. So what we can't neglect is the fact that when governance collapses, things go wrong. So the fact that we had governance failures at ESCOM, where things went wrong, completely wrong. In many of our entities, I mean, I'm a minister, I've found entities, in my own portfolio, I found entities with no leadership. Once you have people acting, the turnovers, once you have, see, if we look just on ESCOM, how many CEOs we've had, that tells you there can't be stability. If each and every time, I think we have, is it number 17 this one? Or 20 somewhere? But it's high turnover. Anyone, scholars of governance, corporate governance, it's one of the areas I'm trying to understand as a student. It tells you that you can never have any stability once you have that. Look even in the departments, for example, one of the things, you look even in the departments where there's been high turnover of ministers. The minute you have a longer minister staying, they're able to ensure stability. You look at mineral resources. We had challenges previously. We no longer have much. Most of you have forgotten that we had huge issues in the mining industry, with the mining sector fighting with the ministers, the mining charters and everything. There's stability because there's been consistency of leadership there.
But here's the problem. And it is one minister saying one thing and another minister saying something completely different.
What do you mean by that and where? Maybe be specific so that we can...
I'm actually going to go straight there. Minister Mandasha says he has no clue why ESCOM is implementing load shedding when it has reserve capacity. I want to quote directly his words. He says, they have 15,000 megawatts. That is idle. There is a lot of energy that is not used because of one reason or another. Now, as a South African, I wake up to this statement and I say, okay, so what's going on in South Africa? Is this self-induced load shedding where someone has decided that let's plunge the country into darkness just because we can, and I suppose they will explain themselves later?
Look, I think the issue for me, looking at that statement, unfortunately I could have missed it. I didn't have a conversation with Minister Mandash. But as a co-chairperson of the cluster with me and as a colleague, we spend a lot of time together with Minister Godan on dealing with these issues. What we have appreciated is that over time, because the issues of plants, you know, your power stations, some of them are coming to an end in terms of their lifespan. Now, when they come to an end, because they need to either be decommissioned or you need to extend their life. So without environmental department together with ESCOM agreeing to say we are extending, that power or megawatts can remain idle. I think that's the context from where I couldn't understand, I don't understand the context. But what we know now clearly is that we do not have excess electricity. We have a shortfall. And the minister responsible has explained. The difference between Minister Godan and Minister Mandash is that, maybe just to explain to South African, Minister Godan is responsible for ESCOM and the implementation in terms of ensuring that we have electricity in our households. Minister Mandash is responsible for policy and the generation part. So he issues regulations in terms of Section 34 with NERSA. So it's policy and regulation. So with what we see with the IPPs, what we have done, we've asked him to fast track the implementation of the IPPs in terms and the implementation of the IRP. Independent power producers, sometimes our viewers say we use these acronyms and they get lost. And then with the IRP is a document that guides us how much energy we need and all that. So he has fast tracked that. And out of that, he has produced a particular number of energy.
Yeah.
Let me explain something where the gaps are. Just give me a second.
Let me take a short break. Let me take a short break, Minister, because I'm going to run out of this paid break, which I need for me to get paid. But we're going to continue on the energy issues. We're not going to spend too much time because there are other issues that we need to tackle with Minister Kubayi. So we'll continue in a moment. If you're just joining us, you are right in time as we are halfway through the conversation with the ANC's head of economic transformation, who doubles up as Minister of Human Settlements, Mmamoloko Kubayi. She also wears another hat, and that is that of the co-chair of the Cabinet's economic cluster. And that's I think that's where we are roundabout now, Minister, that you co-chair that cluster with Gwede Mantashe, who also happens to be the Minister of Energy. I want us to move from this energy subject, but we can't do that before we tackle two critical questions. What do you think is going to ultimately solve the country's energy crisis? As we speak, the minister was just in court. I think it was Tuesday, where judgment has been reserved, where he is fighting environmentalists, and it's all about blasting the country's coastline in order to see whether South Africa is possibly rich in gas or oil. Is that something that potentially could take us out of this energy crisis?
If we look at our document, we do emphasize the need for exploration. We think that there is an opportunity there for us to be able to do exploration. There is indication that we could be able to find some natural resources in those areas if you look, because indications are Namibia was able to discover, and when they looked at where they discovered, it showed traces towards South Africa, and that's what informs that exploration in that side. Part of the issue is that we've got to think about, as a country, yes, the laws allow for people to take us to court, but there are times where we feel that the courts are utilized to derail development.
But you're also failing. I'll tell you why you're failing.
Why are we failing? What do you mean?
You granted those exploration rights back in 2014. It was to a company called, I think, Impact Africa, now Shell. It was granted back in 2014. What you are failing to manage, Minister, and your colleagues, is the balance between the environment and, of course, the country's developmental needs. But where the challenge is that you're failing to take communities along. That's what the court has said.
No. I disagree extensively. The issue here, Oli, is that Minister Mantashe has been in those areas meeting with communities and leaders. And actually, he was even being accused to leading almost like a Bantustan, because he called the chiefs there. Because most of the people in the rural communities, all of us know, they listen to their chiefs. So he called the chiefs to call as well the people there and engaged. The issue is when you have individuals going there, misinforming communities, that's what would happen. Some instances we've had is that you'd find individuals going, paying the chiefs, giving them money, or giving communities. When you arrive, they object. So yes, I agree that we have to find a balance between developmental needs of the country and also environmental. We have an NGO sector that is very litigious in the country, and we can't stop them. One of the things that we said, and that's why we are looking at as policy, to say, is there an option for Minister of Justice, for us to say in policy, can we have specialized courts that deals with litigation around economic issues, whether it's mergers, because we have the problem there, and investors run away because you take forever to take decisions, and we are not supposed to tell courts to say, this one is important for investment, please quickly finalize it within 2 months. Now, we are supposed to allow the courts to be independent. Right. And you are saying a better way might be for us to allow, to say, let's have specialized courts that can focus specifically on development. Because the part where we are missing as South Africans, including the NGOs, is that investment, these opportunities, we are fighting for them with everybody else globally. We don't deserve them. Investors have options somewhere else. Now, we've got to create a conducive environment. If they think that our regulation, our law systems is inhibiting, they'll go and find it, like they've done. They've gone to Namibia, they've explored, they found, we're still stuck here.
But here's a critical issue, Minister, and we need to move on very briefly on this energy matter now. What's wrong with declaring a state of disaster at Eskom then, for the moment, whilst we still are in crisis? What would the impact be?
Look, clearly, the state of disaster in terms of the Act now wouldn't qualify unless we do a new law that allows, and I think we can ask the colleagues to explore and then report. But currently, no. The current law. Otherwise, somebody else will take us to court. I mean, that's what we get to. But as I said, from policy point of view, we are saying, and I want to allow the ministers responsible in government to be the ones that speaks on detailed intervention. My responsibility, Claudia, is on coordination in government, and in ANC is on policy.
All right.
So if I start conflating the issues, I might find myself starting to behave like a Minister of Energy or Minister of Public Enterprise.
Minister, there is the other element now where you are directly responsible, human settlements. A disaster in KZN happened a month ago. People are still waiting. People are living in community shelters like sardines. It's not dignified. What is being done about that situation, very briefly?
Look, we committed to doing temporary units. One, we have moved in terms of issuing vouchers for those that are partially damaged. That has gone smoothly, as expected. The hurdle that we had was one on the land. So we needed to identify the land because most of the people where they were staying, we couldn't rebuild where they are. So we have to find a land alternative to be able to put them. We've identified the first land. We had a challenge in terms of the people who stay there. They said, not in our neighborhood. You're not putting these temporary units here. So that's the first problem. I've asked the team to either, one of the options is that we get a social facilitator to go and have a conversation with that community to allow us to, because the law doesn't allow us just to. But also we are avoiding where you will end up with conflict, because it will be like it's a conflict facilitated by government. But again, one of the other things that in conversation as well with the president was that if it means you expropriate land, go and expropriate land and make sure that you get the people. So there are pieces of land, one that we are identifying that we might be expropriating. And also we are looking at other options. The major hurdle has been the land for us.
And touching on issues of land, Minister, the situation does not just find itself or find expression in KZN. You have major issues that are happening here. As I speak to you, last night, there's a community in Litabong, that's the area of Sebokeng. You would know that because you are a Gautenga yourself. And I can't explain to you the feeling that that evoked, seeing an elderly woman talking to my colleague, Malungelo Boy, and she was preparing to spend yet another cold night out in the streets. In fact, let me not put words in this elderly woman's mouth. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
ANC dlale ngethu. Hayi ANC angiyifuni mntana. Soze ngiyifune ANC.
It is disheartening, Xoli. Our policy, actually we have a policy that prioritizes senior citizens. When I see here, I guess I have to take responsibility. How do I have an elderly person sitting in the streets when I'm supposed to have provided a house for?
Literally in open field.
Yeah. And there is nothing stopping from government to allocate. We've been allocating houses. We shouldn't be. Our policy says when we have housing that we are allocating, we must give priority to the elders who are on the list and also provide shelter for. And I can tell you I found many. I deal with it. Last week we had a household, child-headed household. I asked the MEC to go there. He went, he intervened. This one again, MEC Maile will have to go there, intervene, because we give the money to the provinces to provide services to these families. And the list, that's why one of the things that I said truly in the department when I started, and I'm cracking the whip because I need that system up and running as in yesterday, the digital platform. Because once you digitize the system, automatically it should be able to put the elderly up. What I categorize as the most vulnerable. Currently, because the system is disfragmented, it's not centralized, it's not digitized. So if I need to know if she's on the list, I'm going to have to phone Gauteng to check for me. They will check in the municipality, whether it's Mfuleni, they check there. And then you might find that even the list is not even reliable. One of the things that we found is that you find as council changes, then the councillors in the wards changes the list. They go and update, and you find that that's how you find people who say 1998 are registered for a house, I've not received it. And that's why our immediate intervention is to say once we have a digital system, we'll get young people to go in and verify. It will have dual locations to be able to ensure what we have on the system that is manual. HSS, we have it, it's our system, but it's not as reliable. So it depends on people who have captured. So it will be able to migrate, and we can be able to say immediately, check punch like we do with IEC, that's what we want to do. You punch in the ID number, and then it gives you the person where they are on the list, where they are allocated, and where you need to intervene. Currently, I can say that this is, I don't want to lie, this is not an isolated case. I know South Africans would say, I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so. The challenges of human settlements in this country needs a different approach, which we're trying to do.
All right. I can't let you go without speaking to you about corruption. At the moment, there's a hot potato that is Glencore. We'll talk about that in a moment. And we are in conversation with the ANC's head of economic transformation, Mmamoloko Kubayi. She also doubles up as Minister of Human Settlements. We're wrapping up this interview, Minister, and I can't let you go without talking about Glencore. This company has had operations in South Africa. In fact, they might still be wrapping up their business here, as they said some time ago. They've admitted to paying bribes and manipulating prices in countries like the US, UK, Brazil. They've also done the same, it is said, somewhere around Africa. In South Africa, the UDM says, we can't just keep quiet and think that this only happened overseas. Is there a legitimate reason, as someone who is a leader in the ANC, to look into the affairs of Glencore and how it ran its deals here in South Africa?
I think the first start, Xoli, is that we've been very clear as this administration and this NEC that we will deal with issues of corruption. We accept that there's been wrong things that have happened in the past and needs to be dealt with. I think that is very clear from the NEC. That's why we supported even the work that has been done by the Zondo Commission as a start. Secondly, the issue of Glencore, and sometimes, you know, you get the influence where you find other people who tweet, you say, no, it's linked to the president and all those things. And I think it will be most important that we also allow our institution. I don't think there's anything wrong. No one from us, or even including the president, I'm confident, he will never stop investigations against Glencore in the country. That can be stopped. If there's anything wrong that Glencore has done in the country, they will have to account. It does give to say, if they've admitted everywhere else, there is a need for us to look, have they done something wrong in the country? So that everybody can be cleared. I think what we have spoken about as this leadership, both in government and in the ANC, was about transparency and accountability. Yeah. And if we have said that we want to see things transparent and accountable, and I think that has been. That's why, and I need to say, President as the head of the ANC has stood every time. When Zondo Commission investigation happened, he went out to say, I'll go to the commission myself. I'll go and answer, and he's done that.
So why doesn't he take initiative on this part? Partly because, Minister, let me put it this way. Partly because in South Africa, Glencore owned a company called Optimum. Was the president not the chair of Optimum from 2012 up until he left in 2014?
Exactly
so this affects him directly.
No, exactly the point. Wouldn't tomorrow, if he takes the initiative to say, this is how I want the investigation, wouldn't it be assumed that he's covering up? That will come still. Now, that's where the issues are.
So what should be the best approach?
Let me come. In this country, truly, we have 3 arms of the state. The judiciary is independent in this country. We have institutions in this country that are responsible for fighting corruption. What we must ask, because this institution don't have to wait for somebody to come. They are Chapter 9 institutions, they are your hawks and everybody else. All we need is to provide information to say this is what needs to be, and they can do their work independently without interference. I think it's a generic, what is painful, what you get to do. You know, being put, and when things are said insinuating, you don't even know how to respond to them because they're not direct.
Well, there is a direct one, and it's being put against him. In fact, it's gone as far as the police station, Arthur Fraser, to say
I think you just said that he's going to respond to it. His spokesperson has come out to respond. And that's what is good about the president. That is what is better. When something is put, he doesn't go under the table. He doesn't get us to be answering. He answers for himself. As a person who said, I'm the leader and I'm going to be accountable. So let's allow him to respond to those.
And so he's going to be absolutely transparent, whether it's Glencore or the Palapala incident.
From working with him, I have no doubt that he will. I do believe that he will be transparent. I do believe that he will be open about the issues. He's never hidden anything. He's gone out to say this is what has happened. And I think as well, truly, we all accept that it's a year of conference. A lot of things will happen. But what we must be able to do, in everything that we do, we must always remember we have a country. We have a country to protect its integrity. We have a country that is being watched by everybody globally. And we can't afford to thresh it because of leadership contestation. And all of us, both in terms of political leadership, but also all of us as society, we've got to remember that while we're doing all these things, we have investors that are watching us. I just came from Davos.
So you're insinuating that Arthur Fraser might be politically motivated?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying all of us, it's a year of conference. That's what we need to be conscious about. But in everything we are doing, let's remember we have a country to protect. We have a country to preserve. But equally, understand that globally people are watching us. We can't afford as South Africa to be seen like another failed state, another country that has no direction, because it's just a bunch of individuals, Africans, who are just fighting for nothing.
Mmamoloko Kubayi, let me thank you very much for your time.